Hey guys, it's Andy here and welcome back to another episode of Deck Doctor. This is an Abzan Knight deck submitted by one OffWorldUS. I'm just going to touch on their version of the deck and then my version of the deck, things I changed, what I did to improve it, and hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. So to start off with the lineup, we have 4 copies of Conclave Cavalier, which is a 4-cost 4/4 Centaur Knight with Vigilance. When it dies, you create 2/2/2 green-white Elf Knight creature tokens with Vigilance. 3 copies of Knight of Autumn, which is for 3 a 2/1 Dryad Knight. When it comes in, you choose one. You can either put 2+1 counters on it, destroy target artifact or enchantment, or gain 4 life. It's good as a 3-cost 4/2, or it's great for gain life in the aggro matchups. 2 copies of Ariel Knight of Windgrace, which is for 4 a 4/4 legendary creature human knight with Vigilance, and it's got pay 3, 2 and a white to tap it and create a 2/2 white knight creature token with Vigilance. Or you can pay 1 black and tap it. Tap X, untap knights you control, destroy target creature with power X or less. 2 copies of Knight of Malice and 2 copies of Knight of Grace. The black one is for 2 a 2/2 human knight with First Strike with hexproof from white. Gets +1/+0 as long as any player controls a white permanent, and the white version is for 2 or 2/2 First Strike hexproof from black and gets +1/+0 as long as any player controls a black permanent. 3 copies of Llanowar Elves for adding a little bit of ramp to the deck. 4 copies of Radiant Destiny, which is for 3. It's an enchantment that sits on the battlefield. It also has Ascend, so when you have 10 or more permanents, you have the City's Blessing. When it enters the battlefield, you choose a creature type. So obviously we're going to be choosing Knights with this. And creatures you control of the chosen type get +1/+1, and as long as you have the City's Blessing, they also have Vigilance. I actually really like this as an Anthem effect, but I'm not sure whether or not running 4 of it is a bit of a waste of time, because if you haven't got a board full of creatures, there only being 16 creatures in this deck, it's not as useful. So that's probably one of the first things I'll be looking at taking out. 4 copies of History of Benalia. Insanely good card. Absolutely love this. So it's a enchantment saga for 3. The turn you play it and the turn after you play it, you get a 2/2 white knight creature token with Vigilance. And on its 3rd tick, knights you control get +2/+1 until end of turn. That Anthem effect can just be game winning. It's absolutely insane. It's great. 3 copies of Assassin's Trophy in here for the removal. At a 2 cost, at instant speed, you destroy target permanent an opponent controls. Its controller may search their library for a basic land card, put that card onto the battlefield, and then shuffle their library. 3 copies of Ajani, Adversary of Tyrants, which is for 4 a 4 loyalty planeswalker. His +1 ability is put a +1 counter on each of up to 2 target creatures. His -2 ability is return target creature card with converted mana cost 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. And his -7 ability, so his ultimate, is you get an emblem with at the beginning of your end step, you create 3 1/1 white cat creature tokens with lifelink. If you can ever get to his ult, it's insanely cool. His ability to continuously buffing our creatures is very relevant a lot of the time, but I absolutely love the -2 ability being able to get creatures back from grave to the battlefield. The problem I see in this deck specifically is that there are only 7 targets in the deck total that he can actually target with his -2 ability, so that's a bit iffy for me. 2 copies of Vivian Reed, which is for 5. It's a 5 loyalty planeswalker with her +1 ability being look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature or land card from among them and put the card into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Its -3 ability is destroy target artifact, enchantment, or creature with flying, and a -8 ability is creatures you control get +2/+2 and have Vigilance, Trample, and Indestructible. If you can ever get to the ultimate, it can be game winning. The ability to dig through your deck and kind of try and find those creatures or more land can be really good. More often than not, played as a sideboard piece to be able to hit artifacts, enchantments, or creatures with flying, stuff like Lyra, Lyra Dawnbringer, Aurelia, Resplendent Angel, all the really cool angels that are out at the moment. Some really cool flyers in standard, and this is definitely the big answer to a lot of those. A single copy of Whiteley Radiant Champion, which is for 4 a 3 loyalty planeswalker. Her +1 ability is put a loyalty counter on Whiteley for each creature you control. Her -1 ability is target creature gets +X/+X until in a turn where X is the number of creatures you control. And her -8 ability is you get an emblem with whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may draw a card. We seem to have quite a lot of token generating stuff in here, so you can see where the direct synergy is with that. If you can ever get to her ultimate, it's kind of like always having a Beast Whisperer out, but that's on cast, not on just enter the battlefield. So the cool thing with the Whiteley ultimate here is even off the histories, we're going to draw cards. So if we play Whiteley and we manage to get her to her ultimate, and then we play a History of Benalia, we're also going to draw 2 cards off it, which is really cool. 2 copies of Make a Stand, which OffWorldUS noted was in here specifically for the anti-board wipes. So it's for 3. At instant speed, creatures you control get +1/+0 and gain Indestructible until end of turn. And 2 copies of Assure to Assemble, which is either for 2 hybrid or for 6. At instant speed, you can put a +1 counter on target creature. It gains indestructible until end of turn. And assemble is for 6. At instant speed, you create 3 2/2 green white elf knight creature tokens with vigilance. So there is a lot of token generation in the deck. You've got the anthems through the history of Benalia and the anthems through the Radiant Destiny. I feel like it's lacking a little bit on the draw card side of stuff. The land base, pretty typical of an Abzan deck. You're running 4 Temple Garden, Forest Plains, enters battlefield tapped unless you pay 2 life. 4 copies of Sun Petal Grove, comes in tapped unless you control a forest or plains. 4 copies of Overgrown Tomb, the same thing as Temple Garden, but Forest Swamp. Woodland Cemetery, the same as Sun Petal Grove, but relative to swamp or forests. Isolated Chapel, the same, but plains or swamp. A couple of copies of Godless Shrine, and is tapped unless you pay 2 life, tap for white or black. 2 forests, and 2 copies of Arch of Erazka, which has Ascend, so if you have 10 or more permanents, the Ascend becomes online, and when the Ascend's triggered and you have the City's Blessing, it has 5 tap, draw a card. Activate this ability only if you have the City's Blessing. Otherwise, it's tap for colorless mana. Looking back at the deck, I can definitely see the direction that OffWorld was trying to go with it. Let's see if I can't improve it a bit. Looking at the deck here, you can see we are running a lot of the same stuff. Obviously, being Night Tribal, it's going to be running a lot of the same things that were in there previously. I am now running a few improvements, and I have taken some of the more expensive stuff out to replace with cheaper stuff, lowering the curve a bit, and removing some of the stuff that I didn't feel needed to be in the main deck into the sideboard so that we can fit in more knights just to help the game plan and make it a lot more creature based. So we've now got 22 creatures instead of the 16 that was there originally. We're running 2 copies of Valiant Knight, which is for 4, a 3/4 human knight with other knights you control get +1/+1, and it also has pay 5 to give knights you control double strike until end of turn. This thing can just outright win the game, and I felt like it was a lot stronger pick, especially in the 4-drop slot, than the Ariel that was there. Although Ariel is cool and it's got a lot of utility, I just felt like Valiant Knight was a better pick, so I've put it in there. A replacement for the Make a Stand that was in here is the 2 copies of Unbreakable Formation, which is for 3 at instant speed. Creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn, and it also has Addendum. So if you play during your main phase, you can put a +1 counter on each of those creatures, and they gain Vigilance until end of turn. I just felt like it's a slightly improved version of Make a Stand. Adding some draw card to the deck through Midnight Reaper in a couple of copies. So for 3, it's a 3/2 zombie knight with whenever a non-token creature you control dies, Midnight Reaper deals 1 damage to you and you draw a card. That draw card could be really relevant depending on the matchup. We stuck with the 3 copies of Llanowar because although it's not a knight, the ramp is great, and I've also added in 3 copies of Steel Leaf Champion, which is for 3 green. It's a 5/4 elf knight, and Steel Leaf Champion can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. This thing is an absolute bomb, especially in the early game. If we can play this as early as turn 2, this could just absolutely smash our opponent's face. It's a great card. I've also tweaked the land base a little bit to support something that is 3 green, but the Llanowar is definitely something that's going to help us enable being able to play it by turn 2 as early as possible. I've also bumped up the numbers on the Knight of Grace and the Knight of Malice, both to 4-ofs, because we're still running the Ajani Adversary of Tyrants, and it's giving the deck more things to bring back with his neg 2 ability, getting more resilience out of it. And the creatures themselves, fantastic. I absolutely love them. They're great. I took out the 4 mana 4/4 Knight and bumped up the copies of Knight of Autumn to 4. I felt like this was just an overall better card without having to be so hungry on getting 2 white and 2 green by the turn that we needed. I just felt like this was an overall better card, and it brings down the curve a little bit. Also gives us a little bit more utility, and it's a lot easier for us to get green white than it is to get double green, double white by turn 4. Kept in the 4 histories of Benalia. Exceptionally good card, doesn't want to be going anywhere. I've knocked it down to 3 copies of Radiant Destiny. I feel like 3 is the number that we want to be going for, because we want to be drawing into more stuff and getting into more gas instead of drawing into a card that's potentially not doing anything, because it doesn't draw us cards. It's an anthem effect to creatures that if we don't have the creatures, it's not doing anything. Just a couple of reasons why I cut it back down to 3. Kept in the Assassin's Trophies, really good card. And the land base is pretty much the same. I've taken out the Arch of Erazkas to put in the Temple Gardens and the Woodland Cemeteries. Everything's bumped up to pretty much 4-ofs now. So we've got a 4 of Overgrown Tomb, we've got a 4 of the Woodland Cemetery, a 4 of the Temple Garden, a 4 of Sun Petal Grove, 3 of Godless Shrine, 3 of Isolated Chapel, and the 2 forests. I do feel like with this lane base, we are going to be able to play Steel Leaf Champion fairly reliably by turn 3. It's also the main reason why we're not running 4 copies of Steel Leaf Champion, because it's not something that's always going to happen. So we might not want to be drawing into him all the time. But if we draw into him in the mid to late game, it's more and more likely that we're going to be able to play him. So I don't think it's a dead card. I think it's great. And as a 3-cost 5/4 that can't be blocked by power 2 or less, he's insanely cool. Touching on the sideboard here, we can see this is where the Vivians went to. I've also got in 3 copies of Duress, which is for 1, at sorcery speed, target opponent reveals their hand, you choose a non-creature, non-land card from it. That player discards that card. Some more removal in the form of Cast Down, destroying target non-legendary creature for 2 at instant speed. Sorcerer Spyglass, good answer for Planeswalkers. For 2, it's an artifact that sits on the battlefield. When you play it, you look at target opponent's hand and you choose any card name. Activated abilities of the sources of the chosen name can't be activated unless they're mana abilities. So if you name a Planeswalker, it doesn't have to be in the hand, it can be in the deck. If you name a Planeswalker, that Planeswalker can't use any of its loyalty abilities. Note for the... Specifically for the War of the Spark Planeswalkers, they do have a static ability that's still going to be in use on them, but all of their +1 neg1 abilities just die in the water. It's just a really good card. 2 copies of Kaya, Orzhov Usurper, which is for 3. It's a 3 loyalty Planeswalker with her +1 ability being exile up to 2 cards from a single graveyard. You gain 2 life if at least 1 creature was exiled this way. Really good in the Phoenix matchups. Her neg1 ability is exile target non-land permanent with converted mana cost 1 or less. Again, depending on the matchup, that can be really relevant. And a neg5 ability is Kaya, Orzhov Usurper deals damage to target player equal to the number of cards that player owns in exile, and you gain that much life. So depending on how much stuff you've been exiling of theirs, this could be hitting for a lot of damage in the late game. 2 copies of Vraska, Golgari Queen, in there to add to the draw card, also to the removal. So for 4, it's a 4 loyalty Planeswalker with her +2 ability being you may sacrifice another permanent. If you do, you gain 1 life and you draw a card. Her neg3 ability is destroy target non-land permanent with converted mana cost 3 or less, which is an absolute shitload of stuff in the format in the moment. It's great. And her neg9 ability is you get an emblem with whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, that player loses the game. And in this deck, we're going to be going fairly wide with creatures, so if we can ever get to the neg9, it's fairly likely that we're going to be winning with it. And to finish off the sideboard here, 2 copies of Find Finality. So Find is for 2 hybrid, or Finality is for 6. So Find is at sorcery speed, you return up to 2 target creature cards from your graveyard to your hand, giving us a little bit more recursion in the deck. Finality is for 6 at sorcery speed, you can put 2 +1 counters on target creature you control, and then all creatures get neg4 until end of turn. With the amount of anthems that we do have in the deck, that neg4 might not even wipe our board, and could be really relevant depending on the matchup. Otherwise, it's more than likely going to be throwing the counters onto something like Steel Leaf, and then we're going to be left with this massive Steel Leaf champion that can keep swinging later on. Valiant, putting counters on that, it's not going to die. There's a few things, even without the Anthem effects, that is still going to be alive after that point. But that is the sideboard, and that is the main board. That is my improved version of Abzan Knights. If you have a deck that you want to submit to the Deck Doctor series, just put it down in the comments and I'll add it to my ever-growing list of submissions. And Off the World, hopefully this is an improved version of your deck and hopefully you like it. Let me know in the comments. If you guys think this is a better version or a worse version, if I'm missing any cards, if you think some cards are great, let me know in the comments, and thanks for watching, guys.
Thanks for watching, guys. As always, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to see new videos as they were released. If you like what I do and you want to support the channel, you can throw me $1 on my Patreon at patreon.com/SandersQuest. And I will see you guys in the next video. Keep questing, guys.